Sponsor it.
Congressman Michael Burgess is the only Republican to join 60 Democrats in calling for a Justice Department probe into Goldman. The Texas Republican joining us now on the phone. Congressman, good to talk to you. So did you hear anything today that would strengthen your belief that a justice probe is necessary?
Well, here's the when I signed that letter last week, it actually came about because some people back home, some constituents, reached out to me and were concerned, hey, if you proceed with this lawsuit first, then you may mess up the criminal probe. So we really should do the work on the Department of Justice side first, and then the lawsuit. So this really almost seemed like a threefer for the Obama administration. Number one, they get to bash Goldman one more time and perhaps move their financial services bill. Maybe we're going to protect their friends at Goldman from criminal prosecution by proceeding with this civil suit. And you know, I hate to bring it up, but the SEC was also having a very bad news day on some of their directors that had to be reprimanded for using computers for other purposes.
I've forgotten about that. Thank you for reminding me of that. Yeah.
So it was it was almost a trifecta for them. But here's the concern that I have, and I didn't get to hang on the hearings today and watch every word, but I will just tell you this: we fashioned this commission to look into the financial meltdown of September of 2008. They will report back to us in December of this year, which I actually thought was wrong. I thought they should do their work faster and perhaps get it to us before Election Day. But nevertheless, we're doing all of this work on the commission side, and we're going to craft a financial services bill before we even hear from the people that we've charged with looking into this and telling us what went wrong.
Congressman, when you ask your Democratic colleagues, as you must, what the hurry is, what do they tell you?
Well, because they want to have the opportunity to run on the fact that they passed a financial services bill. But if we pass the wrong financial services bill, then really would be just open to that much more criticism. We ought to do it right. We didn't do health care right. We didn't do some other things right during the year. We ought to at least do this one right, and make sure we don't put people in the same precarious position again. Right now, I'm not sure that I've heard or seen anything that's going to prevent the next meltdown.
Well, that's the key. Yeah, I don't know if you did catch this part of the testimony, but at one point, Lloyd Blankfein, the chairman of Goldman Sachs, was asked if you knew that both sides were that you were brokering an instrument that played both sides of a ticket. That is, one was long and one was short. Should both sides have known that? He said, I don't think so. So could there at least be an agreement between Democrats and Republicans on transparency, on opening the process up? It might mean that Goldman Sachs becomes a less profitable firm, heaven forbid. I mean, frankly, I'm not going to lose any sleep over that.
Me neither.
But it might mean a more transparent Wall Street process that perhaps we need.
I wouldn't disagree with that, but I mean, and I don't obviously deal in these types of financial instruments. But don't you ordinarily assume that there's going to be an upside or a downside, that it's a zero-sum game?
Well, that's
someone
true.
is going to win, someone is going to lose.
But you don't necessarily assume that the broker from whom you're buying long-term is also pushing short-term. That is, their interest may be in going against you in the way they're betting.
It does seem like the umpire's playing for the home team, and that is always disturbing when you find that. Doesn't matter where it occurs. I do agree with that. And I'll tell you what, the bright line that used to exist between investment banks and regular banks, maybe it's time to bring that back. I know I've heard Senator McCain talk about a reinstitution of Glass-Steagall. I've heard Darrell Issa on our side, on the House side, talk about it. Mr. Geithner said he did not want to see that happen, but maybe it needs to.
Well, Tim Geithner is sort of from the old Robert Rubin school, the guys who were involved in bringing down the wall that separate commercial and financial institutions. Their argument was then, and I think it still is now, that if we do that, fine, capital moves, the Europeans and the banks around the world will take the place of our banks because they'll be able to offer instruments that we won't be able to offer.
And again, a valid consideration, and perhaps the key is the transparency that you referenced. We did some hearings on this 2 years ago in our Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee on Energy and Commerce. That issue came up. It was felt that because of the size of our markets, that would not be an issue. But I'm not smart enough to know the answer to that. And clearly we would. That's something that needs to be done very carefully and with the advice of many different voices who who actually know that market.
Congressman, the one thing that scares people the most, the people I talk to are in the Tea Parties, the people I talk to, even the people in Wall Street I talk to, are worried that the government's getting too involved in bringing their hand into private sector and fiddling around, whether it's firing the head of GM or moving capital around, whatever. They see the scariest part of this financial re-reg bill as being the capacity, the authority that the executive branch would have to decide whether a banking institution, defined banking by whatever means, needs to be broken up. Does that concern you, that it's giving even more power to the executive to fiddle in the private sector?
Yeah, fiddle's the right word. It's the stuff that nightmares are made of. And here's the deal. You have a White House that has shown itself to really be competently deficient because they've never worked in the real world. You have academics, you have people that have worked in government their entire life, but no one's ever actually run a business that's over there at the White House right now. They've never even so much as run a lemonade stand, and they're going to tell the rest of the country how these things ought to work? I don't think so, and I think that's where we see people really pushing back. They did it in healthcare, and that's what we've got to deal with now. No, don't let them have this kind of power in the financial sector.
We got to go, Representative, but your best guess, will this financial reg pass into cloture in the Senate?
You know, you're dealing with the Senate, so anything goes, but my hope is that it will not, and that we will actually take the time to get this one right.
Representative Michael Burgess from Texas, Republican, thank you very much for being with us, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you, David.
And again,